Did you know? Before they made PR mistakes and engines that can't render women, Ubisoft used to make video games. Now, Ubisoft have always been a bag of mixed goods. Some were great, and some not so much. But back then their mistakes were made in earnest rather than satisfying profit margins or budget cuts or being a consumers. You know, it was all good.
Before you had your Assassin's Creeds, you had your Prince of Persia. Before your Just Dance 5, you had your Smurfs Dance Party. Well, never mind.
However, some of Ubisoft's mistakes can be attributed to the fact that they're a publisher and a developer. This means that sometimes their games released under their banner aren't actually developed by them. Games like Charlie's Angels on the GameCube or Grey's Anatomy for the Wii.
One such game we're going to be discussing today, published by Ubisoft and developed by Argonaut Games, is a game about a bee.
But Bumble found its way to Nintendo 64 systems in the year of '88 and released to mixed to positive review scores. IGN described it as the epitome of first-generation Nintendo 64 games, which I think is a pretty interesting way to look at a game, even if I usually don't give a flying f*** about what IGN has to say. That being said, let's fire up the game and have a look for ourselves.
Good to see you again, old friend. Sorry, did you say something? No? Okay. It's very quiet in here. Oh, I see. We're taking the sci-fi, serious, dramatic route about f***ing bees!
I wonder what the title music's gonna be. Maybe Flight of the Bumblebee, a classic symphony relating to bees.
What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity buck Bumble. What about now? It's time to rock with the biggity buck Bumble.
How about that, can of beans? No, seriously, what is this? Is this title music or is this Iggy Azalea?
To the bump, to the bumper. Bump to the bump, to the bump, to the bass. Bump to the bump, to the bumper.
Ouch. All of that nonsense aside, this is the game. It has this air shooter thing going on, but controlling buck and shooting at the same time often feel like they've got to be different mental processes, and, you know, moving while shooting never really feels to be an option. The visual style makes locating enemies and items somewhat easy, as the levels mostly consist of brown and green bricks and bushes, whereas enemies are mostly black and yellow featuring wasp-like designs. There's giant anti-air wasp things, and there's drones that take to the air. My favourite are these f***ing wasps that just rush the player, kamikaze style, into their own demise.
We call this a difficulty tweak.
There's an unusually large amount of manufactured items going around for an army run by f***ing wasps. Okay. By the way, they call themselves the Herd. You'd think an evil organization of insects would be called the Swarm. No, they've called themselves the f***ing Herd, like they're a horde of cows. There's issues navigating due to the heavy distance fogging, and sometimes a key item or trigger will be hidden in an unexplored alcove you didn't know about because you were stuck in Silent Hill, apparently. I've heard people try to explain this away as being part of the game's setting of England, which is obviously bullshit, but still a humorous little unintentional detail. There's not much to say on the in-game music either. It's kinda like Bit Crush Lounge House that never really goes anywhere. Honestly though, it's the kind of music that works in this sort of game when you're ambling around looking for stuff.
You ever heard this big orchestral clash while walking around picking fruit in an RPG? I have. It's unsettling.
Of course, there isn't really much more to say except the game isn't as fast-paced as other airborne shooters, and feels more like a Wolfenstein game with movement on the Z-axis. It's funny, as the game pales in comparison to games like Star Fox, but Argonaut Games are actually credited as helping program the original Star Fox for the SNES. I guess they say apple don't fall far from tree, but sometime you drop the apple, roll down the floor, end up in another room full of bees! I'm looking at you, Apple! Ugh, so dusty now.